Okay, for this updated video, I was planning on expanding it with the origin of the world and the magic system and the foundation of the religions, and I wrote a script for it, but there's just so much there, I felt like I was skimming through topics that really could be better explored through whole videos. So I'm going to hold off that extended portion for now and just offer a few brief insights that weren't in the original video. Basically, the religion I describe in this video is one aspect of a multifaceted pantheon, and I was very vague about when and where it was practiced and by who. That's because I see this as being sort of a broad belief that would be slightly different when you narrow the focus. Much like with the Greek pantheon, where some people took the beliefs extremely literally and other more as a metaphor or a superstition. Also, various individuals might follow particular gods more closely, and different gods would have different levels of importance to different subcultures. For a really obvious example, the goddess of flight would be supreme in any avian culture, while the Nauticans would be more concerned with the sea god. This goddess of death and her attached rituals are not meant to be a religious system that every single culture on my world follows precisely as described, and it will probably evolve a bit once I start honing down the different mainland or subcultures. So, onto the original video. On the central mainland continent of my world, the people do not believe in an afterlife, at least not in the same way we conceptualize life after death. Rather, they believe that the soul resides in a nebulous, trans-dimensional region inside the cranium, and that even once the body dies and flesh rots away, the soul remains fixed in place. Therefore, the skull must be protected and preserved, lest the spirit be ruptured from its home. This has led to a curious and complex system of rituals surrounding death. The people conceptualize consciousness after death as a sort of endless sleep. The sleep can be deep and peaceful, or it can be restless and filled with nightmares. In part, the type of sleep you experience stems from your memories. Good, wholesome acts in life fuel pleasant dreams, but dying with regret, malice, and bitterness in one's heart fuels spiteful, unpleasant dreams. It is, therefore, believed to be important to clear one's conscience and reconcile with those you've wronged while still in life. However, the manner in which the spirits are cared for in the physical world impacts their state, and it is the role of friends and family to ensure that their loved ones are settled in for a good, peaceful sleep. These are the customs people follow to care for their deceased loved ones. Immediately following death, they will be buried gently, with little ceremony, surrounded by blankets and pillows and maybe a few sentimental items. They will be buried in rich, dark earth to encourage quick decomposition, and the grave will be temporarily marked. If the person dies while away from home, the body must be buried wherever is convenient, and clearly marked, so that it can be located later. The immediate family, that is, surviving spouse and children, if there are any surviving parents, as well as any friends who loved them enough to consider themselves family, all of these go into a state of ritualized mourning. There are strict rules, varying regionally, regarding particular types of clothing they must wear and not wear, and types of activity from which they must abstain. They should not marry or divorce while mourning. They should stay sober. They must not celebrate certain festivals. There are other markers, but they should essentially live quietly, not drawing attention from the unstable spirit they are mourning, lulling it to sleep as parents would a newborn. They must pray daily for the soul of their loved one to sleep deeply, so that the positive thoughts by which they are remembered may be fodder for their everlasting dreams. At the end of one full year, mourning will be complete, and it is time to put the departed to rest with full ceremony. The body will be exhumed. The skull will be carefully cleaned, and the remaining bones ground into powder. There exists, to the degree one can afford it, professional services responsible for the preparation and preservation of skulls. The fortunate families will take the prepared skull and powder to a professional artist, who will have already worked with the family to prepare a design. The design will be completely unique and include both writing and imagery. It will tell the story of their lives, or at least the good parts. It will tell of their loves, boast their accomplishments, preserve their happiest memories. It may include special blessings and well wishes. It will record the names of their mourners and invoke symbolism relevant to their lives, featuring their most cherished values, whether that be family, work, a hobby they loved, or a place. All of this will be beautifully etched in tiny details designed to soothe and give pleasant dreams to the departed. It is meant to be an encapsulating representation of the life they lived, condensed to the available surface area. The skulls of children who died young have little life of which to tell, and might instead show the dreams their parents had wished for their life. The art will be worked into the skull first by carefully engraving the surface of the ivory. Then the powder made from grinding the bones will be mixed with particular herbs, oils, and pigments, creating paint. The paint will be worked into the etched lines, colorizing and fleshing out the designs. Then the skull will receive a final polish, to shine it up and remove any surplus paint. If a person died violently, or if the skull has sustained any type of damage, it will be repaired and inlaid with the finest metal the family can afford. Royalty, and the fantastically wealthy, have been known to set their skulls with enamel or precious stones. The poor design and etch their own family members' skulls. If a poor person dies without any family or mourners to care for them, a Lyoshan priest will inscribe the person's name and whatever else is known about them, along with a generic blessing. It is very easy to distinguish the status of an individual by the quality of their skull, as well as their specific culture and sometimes even locale, based off of the artistic style, motifs, and symbolism used. By examining a sequential family line, it is possible to track the rising and falling fortune of a dynasty. Once a skull's art is complete, the family will finally hold the funeral ceremony, where all who knew the deceased can gather one last time to pay their respects to the family and to bless the spirit residing in the beautified skull. After the ceremony, the immediate family and close friends can finally exit the mourning phase, and there is usually some kind of raucous after-party, facetiously called the real celebration of life. These types of parties are frowned upon by the more religious types, but they nearly always happen. The skulls can be displayed and stored in the family home, and they often are in the years following the death. However, the danger of damage to a skull is real and can be potentially disastrous, and most families eventually opt to deliver the skulls to their nearest Lyoshan temple. Lyosha, the goddess of death, is responsible for the safe solace of sleeping souls. Her temples are designed to be very tranquil, the interiors resembling a cross between a library and an indoor park, with soft candlelight and trickling water fountains. The temples are filled with rows of shelves stretching to the ceilings, and the shelves are lined with skulls, carefully categorized by family tree. Low benches split the aisles, alongside raised garden beds filled with shade-loving ferns and flowers and climbing vines. At Lyosha's temples, family can come and visit their kin anytime. They can wander up and down the aisles looking for their ancestors. They can view the art, reading about the lives of people who lived hundreds of years before them. Some come and speak to their loved ones while tending a garden bed. Others might bring an instrument to play softly. They might bring a book to read aloud, or they might bring news of continuing life. Loud voices and conflict are not allowed inside, as maintaining a restful environment is paramount. Well-wishers might light a candle inside a skull, hoping that the spirit feels the flickering flame as a warm blanket. They might leave a flower or burn sweet incense that the spirits might smell and remember. On particular days, holidays, the anniversary of a battle or natural disaster, you might visit the temple and find it bright and twinkling with lights. Each temple has an inner room, providing more spacious housing for the royal family, as well as other notable members of local society. On a famous figure's birthday or death day, you might find their skull surrounded by gifts and offerings amid a blaze of candles. The shelves are always filled to capacity, and each fresh arrival necessitates the removal of an old, forgotten skull. These skulls must be rehoused, and so, each temple is built upon a perilously complex network of catacombs, stretching deep within the earth. Ancient skulls are preserved there, stretching back hundreds or even thousands of years, back to the founding of that particular temple. The catacombs are usually not open to the public, as only the Lyoshan priests familiar with their layout can safely navigate them. However, if a scholar on a specific research mission requests to view an archived skull, a priest can usually retrieve it. There are many guilds of Lyoshan priests, fulfilling many functions. There is a guild responsible for the burial and later exhumation of the dead, teams of travelers responsible for retrieving the skulls of those who died abroad. There are even a sort of bounty hunters, hired to seek out and reclaim the skulls of those who went missing or died in unknown circumstances. Other teams must prepare for war, not to fight, but to wander the battlefields in their aftermath, caring for the slain. Lyoshan priests transporting skulls are granted diplomatic immunity, free to pass between kingdoms without harassment. There have been circumstances of skulls being held hostage, but this is thought to invite the worst sort of luck upon your kingdom. Other guilds are those artists of varying degrees of skill, hired to clean, design, etch, and paint the skulls. There are poet priests specializing in scripting blessings, and priests who listen and provide counseling to those in mourning. There are the priests who look after the temples, care for and dust the skulls, and archive and organize the ancient skulls down in the catacombs. There is even a guild of mediums, who claim the ability to commune with the spirits of the dead by placing hands on a skull, though it is dubious whether this ability ever truly existed, and many think it has been lost. The temples are funded through tax of the earnings of the guild members, as well as offerings made by temple visitors. The guilds compose a network of people with radically different skills, all having but one thing in common. To enter a Lyoshan guild, one must have traceable ancestry descending from Lyosha's sacred people. However, as roughly 10% of the population is at least part Lyoshan, the guilds have never had trouble filling positions. Caring for skulls is sacred, and a priest must be fully trained before they are allowed to handle them. for to break a skull is a terrible act. This is because it is believed that to break a skull is to rupture the spirit's housing, potentially waking and dislodging it. If a spirit becomes free of its skull, it is very unlikely to find its way back, and it will be forced to wander the land, confused by the unfamiliar surroundings and faces. Acting more on instinct than conscious rationale, it might be compelled to return to its home, seeking out family. It might seek vengeance if it went to the grave unforgiving. It might have only good intentions, but the tenuous grasp it now has on reality can become maddening. The most loving husband could awake to find his wife remarried. The sweetest grandmother might wake and find herself long forgotten. This is why it is a terrible crime to mistreat a skull and risk releasing a spirit. If a criminal is executed, particularly if they were violent or a murderer, the skull is not mourned or decorated. No chances are taken with these skulls. Instead, immediately after being put to death, they are sealed inside copper jars, and the jars are soldered shut. The airtight jars are then labeled and stored away deep beneath the temples, where, one can only hope, they are never disturbed. The fate of execution, and a death with no mourners to lull one to sleep, but instead to feel the blazing heat of a jar sealing, and then nothing. It is as close to a fear of hellfire as this culture has. There are rumors of a secret guild, one responsible for finding and entrapping malevolent spirits, but how they do it, if they even exist, is a mystery. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. I had a lot of fun thinking it up. It's funny because about a year and a half ago, I filled out a chart to create a pantheon, and there were 22 characters, 22 gods and goddesses. When you're filling out a chart like that, you're not really giving yourself enough time to make each one a fully developed character. So you get certain ones where you're like, goddess of death, maybe she can be like goth? So you wind up with a lot of things that are just like lame. And that's really a lot of why I haven't published more than I have online, because I don't want to publish something if I'm going to go and develop it in a different direction later. But basically, I saw this picture online, and it's like this idea exploded in my head, fully formed, and it just kind of combined all of these different things from different cultures and history and ideas and philosophy. Personally, I feel like a culture, in order to function, has to have some kind of moral basis, moral compass, moral alignment. And a religion that has a sort of different concept of afterlife, but still kind of gives you a bit of a moral incentive, seemed like it could work to me. So it was just exciting to see it all fall in place. I've wanted to do something for a while of just painting your life story. And I really love the idea of taking something that our culture finds creepy and weird and making it in a way that other cultures could find beautiful. You know? So I posted the picture of the girl walking through the Hall of Skulls at night, and they're all glowing, and people are like, ooh, that's creepy. But once you hear the full story, you can see how it's actually like, it's comforting, it's celebratory, it's supposed to be peaceful, even though we see it as creepy and weird through our cultural lens. That is one of the best things about world building to me. And then, it was so cool because like as soon as I got that idea, it's like everything else just started to fall into place with all of these guilds and with how these temples work and what function they fill. Because I was just like, the goth goddess of death, like I didn't really have a plan. I didn't have an idea for how she was a part of the culture. And now it goes from square zero to all of a sudden she's like a very important part of the cultural makeup. I don't know, it's just, I have so many ideas in my head. I wish I could just share them all right now. But like art, I don't want to say I'm not good, I'm not great, but I'm so slow. I'm so slow at art. It just is so infuriating. I'm not an artist, like mentally, I'm not an artist. I'm utilitarian about art. I just want to be able to express the ideas in my head. And I feel like I am getting to a place where I can kind of start to do that, but it still just takes me so long, and it's saddening, it's soul crushing to have ideas that you just can't express. So more world building videos to come, but I don't know when, I don't know how quickly, because like this one has literally taken me like 3 weeks just to do art, because I don't know if you know this, but you don't know this. I have 4 jobs. Now that I'm monetized, technically I have 5. But they're all like, I'm self-employed, everything's part-time. So all of the time I've been putting into YouTube over the last year and a half has been every shred of free time I get in between stuff that actually makes income. I have so many ideas, I just want to share them. And I'm so appreciative of everybody who watches, because it's just so encouraging to actually have people that care and are interested and think that they're good ideas and want to hear more of them. So stick around.